Heroes are forged in times of trial. It's tragic, but it's true. October 7th was no different. And I'm sure you've heard your fair share of hero stories from that terrible day. But today, I want to introduce you to some more unsung heroes. The people who worked behind the scenes. The people who rushed to the tragedy, not away from it. To help, to try to stem the blood, the evil, the flood of terror rushing into Israel. I'm talking about the first responders. And in Israel, that means Mada. Mada, or Magen David Adom, which means Red Star of David or the Red Shield, is Israel's national emergency medical disaster ambulance and blood bank service. So in short, when there's an accident, a terror attack, a catastrophe, or a mass casualty incident, it's Mada that comes to the rescue, and Mada that's usually first on the scene. Over the years, Bridges for Peace has had a close relationship with Mada, donating a number of ambulances and medic cycles. And thanks to Christians from around the world like you who rallied around Israel in the aftermath of October 7th, Bridges for Peace were able to provide Mada with 2 new intensive care ambulances to replace some of the vehicles destroyed during the attack. Which brings us back to why we're here, October 7th. Now, Mada is a trusted household name in Israel. You know, you can trust that when you call Mada, Mada will come. But on October 7th, for the first time, that was not possible. And here, to help us walk through the events of that terrible day, and to see it through the eyes of the first responders, is Ronit Glaser. Ronit, welcome. So let me introduce you to Ronit. She's an EMT and a dispatch officer, the Magen David Adom Jerusalem Dispatch Center. She was born in the US and then lived in Australia and finally came to Israel aged 12. She started as a Mada volunteer at 15 and then formally joined the ranks in 2001. Since then, Ronit has witnessed nearly every type of medical emergency, including mass casualty terrorist attacks. But nothing like October 7th. Ronit was on duty on the morning of October 7th, which means she walked alongside the victims, alongside the EMTs in the field, alongside the innocent victims caught in Hamas's crosshairs, desperately trying to do what she was trained to do, called to do, to save them. Ronit, again, welcome. Tell us about Ronit, the person, because first responder, EMT, this is not a job, this is a calling.
Definitely.
So tell us.
Definitely. So, as you said, I moved to Israel when I was 12. Mm-hmm. I began volunteering in Magen David Adom when I was 15. And to me, Magen David Adom, Israel's national emergency service, is an organization made of such amazing human beings. I mean, there are 30,000 volunteers and 3,000 employees. And every single person is there with their heart. We have people in our organization from all over the country, from every city, settlement, village, town that you can think of, every religion, every age, from the age of 15 until we even have 90-year-old volunteers. Men, women, I mean, anyone and everyone who wants to help, who wants to do something from their heart to really be there for other people is part of Magen David Adom. And it's amazing to me every single time I meet yet another one of our personnel who I know or who I don't know, who you see them wearing their heart outside their chest. And I feel privileged to be part of such an organization. I am a single mother, as you said. I have 2 daughters, aged 12 and 9. Actually, soon they'll be 10 and 13, so I don't want for them to be angry that I say that they're 12 and 9. Sweet, sweet girls that even though they are too young to be in Magen David Adom, they feel that it's part of them. I mean, each of them, when they were in kindergarten, came home to me a few times saying, someone got injured and I had to stand there and watch because my Ima is in Magen David Adom, so I need to be there so I can help if I can. So give me a bandage so I can have it in my bag. And they really, I mean, they understand that this is a way of living, that this is part of who we are, and that we help other people. And in Magen David Adom, I definitely believe that our goal is to save lives, but I can't save every life. I can help everyone. And that's my personal goal, to help however many people I can. So even if I have someone who, God forbid, is at a final stage of cancer and just passed away at home, I still have their family around. I still have the family that I can be there to console them, to explain to them what they need to do next, to just look them in the eye, to be there for them at, let's say, when I was at the mass casualty attacks. Very often I would take care of very serious, critical patients there. But at the same time, I would see some people sitting on the stairs right next to the cafe that just exploded, full of ashes, not injured at all, but you see the look in their eye. I would just put a hand on their shoulder and look them in the eye, and you would see them as if breathe for the first time since this happened. Because to me, that's part of being Magen David Adom, and part of being, for me, a good human being, someone who can just help any way possible. That's a little bit about me.
Actually, Ronit, my next question to you would have been, tell me about the people. Tell me about the heart of Magen David Adom, but you've answered that already, and I think I asked about you and you spoke about the people, and that means so much. Thank you for that. So now, moving on.
Yes.
Can you tell me about the days and the hours before October 7th, like 6 o'clock in the morning? What was the spirit like in Israel?
So right before the horrific October 7th started, Israel was in a state of the high holidays. Everyone was celebrating. A lot of people were on vacation. Magen David Adom was prepared for the worst. One of my sayings that I believe in lately is hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And that's what Magen David Adom was doing then. We knew that there were a lot of people on vacation. Every year during the high holidays, Magen David Adom sends out a message to all of its personnel to know where they are, just in case anything happens. We had a lot more first responders with ambulances at their house, just in case, because we knew that this was a delicate time, just because everyone's on vacation and it's the high holidays, and there's always a bit more of a chance that something might go wrong, just, I don't know, in a hotel or a car accident or something like that, or some sort of terrorist attempt that we don't know what could happen. So Magen David Adom is prepared for something to maybe happen, but we're already used to the preparedness. It was we always do many exercises inside Magen David Adom and with the army and with the police, fire department, everyone we can, in order to stay prepared no matter what. And that's already part of our day-to-day times, that we just continue being prepared and go on with our regular system.
And then the sirens started. Now, when did Magen David Adom realize that this was not like any other attack?
Surprisingly, very early on. There were many, many sirens. I hear from a lot of different Magen David Adom personnel, from different supervisors and other people, that they thought that maybe there was a problem with the red alert siren system because there were so many sirens. Someone thought that it was an earthquake because the phone was shaking off the floor because it had already fallen off the night table. But very quickly, that was us who were at home. People who were in Magen David Adom working in the dispatch, letting all of the directors know that there are many sirens. And very quickly afterwards, the air raid that there was, and when they started finding out that there was terrorists inside Israel, before 7 o'clock, I think at around 6:45, we had already gotten a direct order from the director of Magen David Adom, from Eli Bean, to man all 1,400 ambulances of ours. So very, very early on, we understood this was something completely out of the normal. We didn't know how far out of the normal, but we understood that this was something that we probably have never dealt with before. The first time that we realized that there were terrorists inside Israel was when one of our ambulance drivers was actually called to a shooting victim inside Sderot. And on his way to the victim, the terrorist saw him in the ambulance and shot at the ambulance. And the ambulance driver called out on the radio saying that they've been hit and there are terrorists in Sderot. And to make it clear for people who don't know Israel, Sderot is a little town. So let's say if I was in America, it would say terrorists in Teaneck, or in a small town outside of a big town, but still somewhere where you would not expect for terrorists to be. So he said, there are terrorists in Sderot, we have been hit. And they luckily went to one of our paramedics' houses who had already opened a field clinic inside his living room to take care of patients. And this ambulance driver, this team was saved because of our teams inside Sderot who took care of patients there, because we already understood that there would be a problem to send more teams in.
Now, explain to our viewers the improbability, the shock of terrorists in Sderot.
The shock of terrorists in Sderot and all over the Western Negev settlements was something that in the beginning, we were sure that it was 5, 10, dozens, and as soon as we kept on hearing of more victims, I in the dispatch center kept on getting calls from more victims that terrorists are in their house, are burning their house while they're inside their safe room, are running around their kibbutz, their city, their town. It's something that I kept on feeling like it was in a movie. I kept on feeling like it was one of those really bad movies that it was just low budget, okay, we'll just throw terrorists all over the place sort of thing. It was something that I personally had a very hard time grasping. For Magen David Adom, as soon as they saw that this was happening, as I said, they manned all the ambulances, but they were also worried that this was a decoy from what we still, unfortunately, are expecting to happen up north. We were sure that Hamas is small compared to Hezbollah. So Hamas is doing a decoy, so Hezbollah can start taking us apart. And that's why we did everything we could, sending the ambulances down south, but keeping some in case something happens up north.
Ronit, I believe the majority of our viewers can't even imagine having to make such a call, having to think about this. I certainly can't.
Yeah.
Now, Magen David is trusted. It's the household name. You know, in Israel, when you call, Magen David Adom is going to come.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for the first time in history, it wasn't the case. Why?
So Magen David Adom, in the beginning, in the morning of October 7th, we have teams everywhere, as I said, in every city, in every kibbutz, everywhere possible, we have teams there. And our teams started getting hit. Our teams started, all of a sudden, terrorists came directly to hit our teams, directly to make it impossible for us to take care of patients, to save people. And therefore, whoever was in the different cities stayed in the cities, were told not to leave their homes because they are in danger. And whoever was outside of the cities tried to get there, but the army stopped them at some point, trying to manage to take over the terrorists so we could get in. We sent our bulletproof ambulances in as far as we could, which was further than the regular ambulances that waited a bit further away at junctions, so that the bulletproof ambulances could take out victims to the other ambulances and go back in to bring more victims. We also worked very closely with the IDF, with the army, using their helicopters. We also tried to use our helicopters, and one of them was hit on the same day while they were evacuating victims. So the fact that we couldn't send the teams in was very frustrating, especially because I, as a dispatcher of over 20 years, am used to this sort of chain of survival, that I receive the call, I receive the problem, and the ambulance is on its way. On that day, I could not promise anyone that the ambulance is on its way. I knew that Magen David Adom, as the national organization, is doing everything possible to get there, but I also knew that I cannot promise anything because I won't promise something that I can't keep. But I do know that we as Magen David Adom kept on treating patients inside every single city because luckily we have personnel everywhere as this huge, amazing organization. On one hand. On the other hand, the ambulances sent in could not always get there, either because they were damaged, because they were murdered, or because the army stopped them before something bad happened to them.
Now, this is something I wanted to discuss later, but I feel like we need to establish the context here. Magen David Adom can become an auxiliary arm of the army, of the IDF. However, that's provincial. Magen David Adom is not a military organization. No connection whatsoever to the military. In fact, you are registered officially part of the Red Crescent and the Red Cross under the Geneva Convention. Now, my first question on that is, what does international law say about first responders in a conflict situation?
So Magen David Adom was taking care of patients under the Geneva Convention, meaning that anyone who is doing any humanitarian care for people in such a situation, in a disaster situation of any kind, who are targeted, who are injured, who are murdered, is a war crime. And it's unheard of. I mean, the fact that hearing that our team members are being killed, are being shot at, that our ambulances are being targeted, is something that I personally, as a Magen David Adom worker, and as a human being, as an Israeli, as any of that, I can't understand. I really can't understand. Yeah, I mean, yes, I understand that there is the whole law of us being part of the Red Cross Society and all of that. That I understand that it's all nice words, but the bottom line is human beings, okay, terrorists trying to hurt whoever they can, I understand, but trying to hurt people who are supposed to take care of them, people who, more than anything else, before this all happened, we would take patients from from Gaza who needed a treatment in Israel. We would take them to get treated because we believe in the sanctity of life. And the sanctity of life on that day, also of the people who do everything they can to help the lives, wasn't there. This war crime that I still can't rack my brains around. I mean, also what they did to all of the citizens in the area. These aren't soldiers. These aren't people who are fighting them. A lot of them are people who were their friends. And them going in and just doing things that are unheard of. I mean, things that I try my hardest not to think about so that I'll manage to sleep, so I'll manage to continue functioning. But also war crimes against Magen David Adom. War crimes against personnel who their only job is humanitarian aid, is saving people.
Now let's just put this in context for clarity. This wasn't a mistake by Hamas. And oops, we accidentally hit an ambulance. We didn't mean to target a first responder. This was by accident. Can you explain the context for us?
Absolutely. We found also on Pro-Go cameras that were on terrorists who didn't survive their attack, and also papers that were on them, mission commands, that they went straight into the kibbutzim and into the different areas, knew exactly where the ambulances were, shot at them, sometimes with rifles, sometimes with RPGs, in order to damage the ambulance as much as possible. They had papers that said, go into Sderot, go to the Sderot Magen David Adom station and take over the station, just like they did the police station. And we have papers that were found on them with the maps of the city, exactly where the station is, and exactly how to get in. Luckily, on that day, the gate of the Sderot station malfunctioned, which is part of our rules are that if there's any sort of mass casualty situation, you need to open all the gates so that the drivers can come in and take out ambulances. So if anyone needs to go into a shelter, they'll be able to get to the shelter. The Sderot station gate malfunctioned that day, luckily. And that's why they didn't manage to do in the Magen David Adom station what they did in the police station in that city.
So bottom line, this was premeditated targeting of the people who come to save lives. This was part of the strategy.
Exactly. They managed to damage 14 ambulances that day, and 11 of our personnel on October 7th were killed. 3 of them as Magen David Adom workers, personnel, and 8 of them as soldiers who were giving medical care, but they were part of the army.
Can you tell us about these 3 people?
Absolutely. One of them is Aaron Chaimov, who lives in Ofakim. He was at home with his wife and kids, and as soon as he heard that there was some sort of attack going on, he went to the station to take an ambulance, to be prepared. Not very long after he got back home, he was sent out to where the Nova Festival was to start treating patients there. On his way, while he was still in Ofakim, he was shot at, and he was murdered on the point. The second he was shot, his ambulance rammed into a wall right next to there, and the dispatch didn't know what was going on. He didn't have time to say anything on the radio. They just saw the ambulance stop, and he didn't answer his phone, and they understood that he was killed. He left a wife and young children. And there was also, actually, the story that's closest to my heart is Amit Man. She was a paramedic. She was in Kibbutz Be'eri, and she was on call that day. One of the first calls that I received when I arrived at the dispatch center, because I came in when we were called in, was, "Hi Ronit, this is Amit from Be'eri. When will you be here?" And I had no idea what she was talking about. So I asked her to please explain to me what's going on there while I checked over the computer what she had already told us. And she said, "I'm still in the dental clinic in Be'eri. I have gunshot victims here. I have a few mild, some moderate, some critical, and I have a couple of patients who are already dead. So when will you be here?" And I asked her to look out the window to tell me what she's seeing. And this was the first time that I understood anything what was going on. She was the first or second call I answered in the dispatch. So I asked her to look out the window and tell me what she sees. She said, "I see terrorists everywhere and there's a lot of shooting." And I asked her if she sees any citizens. She said, "Yeah, but they're all lying dead." "So when are you coming?" Just like that, very positive, very to the point. I had no idea what to answer her. So I turned to my supervisor and I said, "Okay, listen, I have a paramedic on the line. She's in Be'eri. She has victims. What do I tell her? When will we be there?" And you hear silence on the line for a second, and then I turn back to her and I say, "Amit, you're one of ours. So I can tell you it as it is. I am so sorry. I don't know. I know that we're trying to get there. I know that we're doing every effort possible, but you're in the middle of a war zone. So I don't know when we'll get there. Continue doing the great job that you're doing. We'll be there as soon as possible." And her voice also changed, and she said, "I understand. Thank you."
So she knew.
She knew. She could see also, because the Kibbutz Be'eri was a battlefield. It didn't stop for a second. And she actually called me back a few hours later. Somehow she got to me again. Calls going all over the country. Somehow she reached me twice. And again, the conversation went exactly the same, except for her saying that the mild turned moderate, the moderate critical. And then in the middle of the call, all of a sudden, one of her patients there started shouting, "I'm getting out of here. We're not safe. I can't stay here anymore. I'm going to go find somewhere safe." And while she was talking to me, she said, "Excuse me for a minute." And she turned to him and she said, "You are not going anywhere. We have been safe here until now. We don't know what will happen if you go out. You stay with me and we'll do everything we can to stay safe." "I'm sorry, so what were you saying? When will you be here?"
How old was Amit?
22. And she was, first of all, she was already a paramedic instructor. She was someone who, at the age of 12, I think it was, decided that she wants to be a doctor when she's older. And she started learning, instead of reading any regular teenage books, she read medical books. Her walls were full of bodies and of different, the muscle system and the skeletons and everything. That's the pictures on her wall. And she had already become a trainer of paramedics at the age of 22. And you could hear on the line, she stayed professional no matter what. She stayed calm and collected and always saw her patients in front of her. To me, until today, she is my inspiration of the caregiver that I want to be, of the caregiver who will always stay calm and collected and professional and care for her patients no matter what is going on around. And again, she asked me at the end of the call, when will you be here? And again, I had to answer, we're trying. I don't know. And again, her voice changed and she said, I understand, thank you. And after 7 hours in the clinic of treating victims, the 2 men who were manning the clinic ran out of ammunition and the terrorists got in and she was shot in the leg. And the way that we know that is she tied a tourniquet to her leg to continue treating her patients. In the end, she was shot in the head, and they found her only 2 days later because the clinic was booby-trapped, so no one could go in until they managed to clear the clinic. But 2 days later, she was still found with the medical gloves on her hands. And that's exactly a sign of who she was, of this amazing angel who only wanted to save people and help people however much she could. For 7 hours, she managed to, until the terrorists got in there.
What a hero.
Absolutely. She is a hero. She is an inspiration. She is an amazing girl. Amazing.
Were any of her patients saved?
The man who shouted that he wants to leave, he was saved. And as soon as he got out of his emergency operation, he asked to speak to her family and told them that she was the one angel in the middle of all that hell that he was in.
And she saved his life.
She saved his life.
May her memory be such a blessing.
Absolutely. Amen. And the third Magen David Adom person who was killed on October 7th is Aviyah Chetzroni. His nickname was Abuya. He was as if the father of all of the volunteers down south. He was the ambulance driver in Kibbutz Be'eri. And on the morning of October 7th, I guess before 7 a.m., he was running to the ambulance to start, what he understood what was going on. And I'll tell it a different way, actually. When Amit called, then she had actually reached the headquarters the first time she dialed 101. And at the headquarters, they tried, while one person was speaking to her, another person kept on trying to reach Abuya on the phone, and he didn't answer. And they couldn't understand why. And turns out that already then, a bit after 7 a.m., he was shot outside of his ambulance. Shot dead, wearing his Magen David Adom vest. And that is why he could not arrive and to help Amit in the clinic, because the terrorists had already gone into Be'eri. Turns out that after he was shot, he ran back into his house. And there were his 2 grandkids. He took care of his grandkids, twin 12-year-olds, who only weeks afterwards, their remains were found. They were they couldn't even recognize the bodies. They had to find from tiny bits of their remains to recognize that these were his grandkids who were killed, and also his sister was killed that day. So he was the third legendary Magen David Adom person who was killed on that day in uniform.
The production of this investigative series is made possible by the generous donations of Christians from around the world. You can also make a difference by supporting this initiative. We want you to share, to give, and be a voice so that we can produce more series like this. The truth about what is happening here in Israel and around the world must be told, and it must go out. Please click on the link to donate.
Ronit, that's one of the calls.
One of the calls.
Can you, there must have been hundreds, thousands, but which ones are ingrained in your memory to this day?
I have to admit that even though I was there for 13 hours that day, I remember only 10 calls. Something about my subconscious is keeping me safe, not letting me remember more. I feel on one hand lucky that I'm being saved like that. On the other hand, I feel guilty towards the patients that I can't remember. I know that it is recorded and it is somewhere, but the fact that I can't remember it gives me a bit of a hard feeling. And to give a bit of a context, I arrived at the Magen David Adom station with my 2 daughters. When the first siren started in Jerusalem, I took them to our kind of safe room at home. And we don't really have a safe room because we live in an old house. So as soon as we were in there and they were both terrified and crying and not understanding what's going on, we got a WhatsApp message from our supervisor saying, everyone come in now. And without thinking twice, I called her. And I said, I'm coming with my girls, is that okay? And she said, yes, come in. On the way from my house to the station, which is less than a 10-minute drive, there were 3 red alert sirens. So 3 times we needed to stop on the side of the road. My girls lying face down on the road and me lying on top of them with my hands on their heads. And my 9-year-old saying to me, but Ima, who's going to cover your head? And all I could say to her was, as long as you're safe, I'm okay. And when we got to the dispatch center, it's in a bomb shelter. The Jerusalem station, the Bloomberg station is a very big building, and the dispatch center was built in a bomb shelter on 3 floors underground to make sure that we will be able to continue acting no matter what is going on around. A bomb shelter that's also safe for biological and chemical war, anything will be safe there. So I knew that my girls will be physically safe no matter what. They waited in the kitchen of the bomb shelter, and I went into the dispatch center, everyone's saying, be prepared, it's nothing you've ever dealt with before. Am I thinking to myself, I've dealt with everything. And then I answered Amit. And afterwards, one of my friends actually answered a call from a 9-year-old boy who was hiding in the closet with his 6-year-old sister. Now, my friend is also a mother around my age, and she spoke to him and she asked him what's going on, and he said that his mother is dead in the living room, and his father is dead at the entrance to the house, and his sister is dead next to his father. Turns out that his sister was kidnapped and she wasn't killed. And he's in the closet with his 6-year-old sister who's covered in blood. And my friend asked him, what, is she injured? And he kept on looking for injuries on her while trying to stay quiet so the terrorists won't find them. And he said, no, I think it's just mom's blood. And my friend tried to help them as much as possible, told them to try to stay quiet, to stay hiding underneath whatever clothes they have inside that closet. Turns out that the closet was not even a closet, it was a little drawer on the side of their safe room because he wasn't strong enough to close the door of the safe room. And turned out that around 12 hours after that call, the army came to save them, and until he heard his uncle's voice, they did not agree to come out of their hiding. Their 3-year-old sister, in the end, she was one of the first hostages released. It's Abigail. So I'm happy to say the 3 children are together, and they're with their aunt and uncle. So we know that that part of the story is a bit better. But as soon as my friend finished speaking to them, she asked for someone to replace her, and luckily we were a lot of people in the dispatch center that day. So as soon as anyone needed to be replaced, there was someone to replace them. And she went out to the kitchen and started crying and shouting about what she heard and how can this be. And this is early in the morning, it's 9-10 a.m. I mean, we still haven't grasped what's going on, and how these kids, and they're locked and shouting and crying, and everyone's shushing her, and she couldn't understand why. And they pointed over her shoulder, and my daughters were sitting right there. And as soon as I could, I went out to speak to them. And my 9-year-old was watching Friends on the iPad. I mean, she was trying to stay completely out of it. My 12-year-old was very concentrated, crocheting. And I asked her, what's going on? She said, I'm okay. I said, okay, let's talk. No. Sat her on my lap. And as soon as she looked me in the eye, she started sobbing. And I asked her, what's going on? She said, is it true? Everything that I heard, are there bombs all over the place? Are there kids in this? Are there terrorists everywhere? And she just let it all out, which I was so proud of her. And I hugged her and I told her, you know that I will never lie to you. And I'm sorry to say, everything that you've heard is true. And it's terrifying. And it makes us feel so helpless and so hopeless and so sad. And every bad feeling that you're feeling is absolutely right. And I'm so proud of yourself that you're letting yourself feel this. But I want for you to remember one thing. I, as your mother, will do everything in my ability to keep you and your sister safe. That's why I brought you here today. And I know this is not good for your souls, but your bodies are safe, and we'll work on your souls later. And my sweet 12-year-old gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, I know, Ima, I love you. Now go back to work. Oh, they understood. This is what needs to be done. And that was it. I said, I will call someone to come pick you up. I'll make sure that it happens as soon as possible. They didn't want to go. I said, I will be in there. It's not safe for you to stay here. I'll find someone with a safe room. You will go there. In the meantime, if you need a hug, you come in to me. This all leads to one of the first calls that still sticks with me. I got a phone call from a woman in Netanya saying, I'm standing here next to my pregnant sister. Her husband was at the Nova Festival. We know that he's still there. He called us, but now we can't reach him. Just call him to make sure that he's okay. She gave me his number. I saw that we already had a call open for him. I called him and asked him what's going on. He was whispering and sounded very faint. And he said, I'm hiding behind some trees. I don't know when they'll find me. There's only Arabic around me, and I could hear the shooting around him. I said, okay, stay quiet, but are you injured? I can help you for now treat your injuries. He said, I have something in my legs, but I can't look down. I said, okay, if you can't look down, just continue looking straight forward. I want for you to think of your wife, to think of your unborn child, and how much you love them, and how you would do anything and everything to stay strong, to see them again. And this grown man started crying, sobbing on the phone, and faded out. And I was pretty sure that that was the moment that he died. During all this call, my 9-year-old is standing next to me waiting for a hug. I hang up with him, and she says to me, Ima, you wrote he's going to faint twice. And that was her way of saying, I understood, and I'm strong. And I just told her, I love you very much. Hugged her, and she ran back out. This man has stayed very close to me ever since then. I don't know his name. I don't know his wife's name. I have no idea. Then a bit afterwards, my 12-year-old came in also to get a hug and asked her if she's sure she wants to. She said yes. And as she was walking towards me, the man sitting next to me in the dispatch got a phone call from someone whose house was just hit by a missile. And he shouted on the phone, did you say both his arms and his legs are amputated?
Oh.
And my daughter said, love you, Ma, bye, and ran out.
Oh my goodness.
It was one of these days that you just don't know where it'll come from. And I have to say, as a dispatcher, that I am very proud of what we could do on that day, because even though we couldn't do our job, we did anything and everything possible in order to help whoever was on the other side of the line, whether it was emotional, whether it was trying to figure out how to explain to kids how to hide, whether it was calming down a woman who sees her dead family outside the house and we can't come to pick up the bodies right now because it isn't safe to come down the streets, whether it's receiving the locations of every single person who called, no matter where they were in the country, that the army used for days and weeks afterwards in order to find the bodies. We did everything and everything we possibly could, thinking outside of the box completely in order to be there for whoever needed us. We couldn't do our job the way we usually did it, but we did it the best way we could. There were many, the other calls that I remember, there are two that are sticking with me right now. One of them was from this sweet woman. First, a woman called me from Nachal Oz saying, hi, does anyone there speak English? I was like, yeah, you came to the right person. She said, great, I have a neighbor whose husband was shot. She's a house next to me, but I'm in my safe room. She's in her safe room. Can you call her just to let her know, just to explain to her what to do? I said, yeah, but I want you to first send me your locations so that we'll know where they are because you're a house next to her. She sent me the location. I called this woman, sweet young American woman. Hi, I'm really sorry to interrupt. I know that you're really busy. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here at home with my husband. He was just shot, but he's okay. And I hear silence. Except for her, I don't hear anything around there. I expect for him to make some noise from pain or something. I said, is he conscious? She said, yeah, he's conscious. We're just staying calm together. And where was he shot? In his lower back. Okay. So I want for you to please, in the meantime, apply pressure. I explained to her what to do. If anything changes, please dial 101. We have your location. We'll get there as soon as we can. Yes, I understand it'll take you a while. I understand the situation. This was afternoon. I was noon, a bit after that. And I understand the situation. We're okay. I just want for you guys to know that we're waiting. I said, no problem. Thank you very much. If anything changes, dial 101. If no one speaks English who you called, ask for Ronit. I will be here all day. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Bye. That was like my one hope of the day. 3.5 weeks later, I was working, you could say still again, however you want to put it. And I get a call from the missing persons headquarters asking to hear the recording of a call from that day. Now it's way over my paycheck to be able to get them the recording. I patched them through to the headquarters, to our headquarters. And I listened to the call, and they say it was a call that was made outside from your dispatch with Nachal Oz. It was in English, and it lasted 144 seconds. Okay, I listened to the whole thing. As soon as they hung up, I called back the headquarters, and I asked her, did you look into that? Was that a call that I received? She said, yeah, how did you know? And I said, well, I connected the dots. Turns out that 3.5 weeks later, this woman and her husband are missing. As if one hope of the day, that I feel very egotistical to say that it's my hope, but they were my one hope that they were okay, were missing 3.5 weeks later. If I understood correctly, around a month ago they were declared dead. But like this sweet, sweet, young, calm, happy couple that just also disappeared. And another call that I got from this guy, really angry, Israeli guy, calling me, shouting at me, who do you think you are? I called you 3 hours ago. We're stuck in a hole in the ground. I have 2 dead friends next to me. My friend has a piece of shrapnel in his hip and he's bleeding like crazy. I have shrapnel in my legs and we're running out of water. We're gonna die of dehydration. Where are you? And all I could say to him was, try to keep quiet. They can hear you. I mean, I could hear the terrorists around him. I understand that you're in a hole in the ground, but no matter if they can't see you, they can hear you. Keep your voice down. You won't tell me what to do. Just come here already. Bring me water. I mean, it was so sweet that the man was concentrated on the water with everything going on. I mean, I kind of try to sometimes understand around the stuff, and I thought it was so sweet, but I kept on trying to explain to him how to treat the wounds, what to do in order to help his friend, in order to help himself, to stay quiet, whatever. In the end, he agreed to keep his voice down. I tried to make sure that he was where he was according to the location that we had. He would not cooperate with that. I knew that in the end, someone would arrive there, and there was not very much I could do for him. And pretty much the whole call was him getting at some of his anger until he could calm down and hanging up the call. I have no clue what happened with him in the end. No clue whatsoever. It was just a day of on and on and on, trying to be there for them, not being able to, completely understanding their anger, because inside of me there's also anger, but I need to stay like Amit, as professional as possible. Just all of this back and forward of, we got to do whatever we can. But I have to say, one of the most amazing things that happened that day was that in the middle of the day, they opened the blood banks in 4 different locations in the country. And in Jerusalem, they opened the blood bank also because they needed them in places that there were bomb shelters. And people came straight from synagogue, from praying. And women came from home with their pots, because this was a high holiday. It was not only a Sabbath, also high holiday. So people came with their dressy clothes, with their pots that they cooked from home. Students who were just supposed to start university came walking their dogs. And volunteers from Eastern Jerusalem came to fill out the forms because they won't write on Sabbath, all the religious people. So they came to fill out the forms for the religious people. And they stood online around the corner, which is something that Israelis don't really know how to do, to stand online. But they stood online around the corner waiting to donate blood. Whenever there were sirens, everyone came down to the bomb shelter with my girls who were like, what's going on? And then went back up and stood online again. And sooner or later, they started praying and started singing. And the singing 3 floors up came somehow down all 3 floors like this very, very gentle, warm light that filled all of us, that I felt for the first second that I heard the singing, and I felt like I can breathe. And that was the first moment that I felt that we're all in this together, and that everyone is doing anything and everything they possibly can in order to help. And it just gave me the strength to continue and continue for weeks and weeks and months afterwards. And whenever I meet people who want to hear about this story, who want to hear about what went on that day, who want to learn about Amit and about the patients I talked to and about what we did on that day, also gives me that sort of strength, that sort of, we're in it together. We're going to do this. We're going to manage, because this is our country. This is where we are. This is who we are, and we don't need to apologize for that.
I have no words.
I'm sorry.
I have no words. How have you changed after October 7th?
Since October 7th, I have felt that I need to be prepared. all the time. I haven't let myself really go through any grieving. I feel like that's what all of Israel is in right now. We're not prepared to go through any grieving. We're prepared. I keep on preparing my daughters for the fact that this might not be over, even though it feels very calm right now in Jerusalem. We don't feel very much of the war. There's still war going on down south, and it could very well be that it'll come also from up north. So I don't want to scare you girls, but I want for you to know that this might not be over. And that's me preparing them, trying not to scare them, while I am trying to stay as calm and collected as possible and prepared for whatever will come, and trying to help inside Magen David Adom with everything that all of the different exercises we're doing now in order to be prepared for whatever will come, with the dispatch, trying to see how else we can make our technology better, even though I think we have amazing technology, understanding that we need even more ambulances and more bulletproof ambulances, and all this stuff is just, we're all in prepare mode. We're all in, we're still as if in the car when you press on the gas when it's in neutral. That's what it feels like. That's exactly where I feel now, and I feel that everyone around me is also. Everyone keeps on saying, okay, so when's the war up north going to start? When's it going to start? Just because we know that it's going to happen. But we understand that we need to be prepared, and not hysterical, just prepared and aware that sooner or later it'll happen.
Ronit, I do want to tell you that you are not alone.
Thank you.
Throughout history, the Jewish people have gone through horrible, horrible times. And very often you did so without a witness, without people having your back. This is not one of those times. This is a different time. We are here, and we're staying here. And those people in the nations who speak out for you, and that's you. Now, I want to shout Ronit's story from the rooftop so that everyone will hear it. But my voice is not strong enough, and that is why I'm calling on you today. As Christians who love Israel, you've heard the story. Shout it. Shout it from the rooftop so that everyone will hear. Speak about Amit. Speak about Ronit. Tell the story. Make sure that the world knows. I think one of the main motivators behind this series of interviews is to turn you into a witness, to ensure that never again someone will be able to say in your presence, October 7th didn't happen. It wasn't that bad, or it was justified. Never again. You are now a witness. You have witnessed October 7th through the eyes of a first responder. Be that witness. Speak out. Speak for truth. Speak for Ronit and her colleagues. I'm Israel Chai.